Sorry about that.
Can you hear me?
Hi, yes, hi. I'm
Good
so sorry.
morning, Zara. How are you?
Good, thank you. I'm so sorry I'm late. There was another interview that kind of went over time, so my apologies.
Let me turn your volume.
Yes. Hi.
Don't be sorry. Good morning, Zara. How are you?
Thank you. Sorry, there's a bit of a yeah. Okay, cool, great. Kind of went over time, so my apologies.
It's no problem at all. Don't even worry about it. There's a
Cool.
little bit of a delay. Do you hear a delay a little bit?
I do a bit of an echo, yeah. Okay, cool. Great.
Let me see if I could turn the delay off. Let me see. Can you hear me okay? Do you hear a delay a little bit?
Yes, I can. I can hear you great. There is a little bit of an echo.
Let me see if I can play with this for a second to get it to go. Get it to go away.
Yes, I can. I can hear you great. There is a little bit of an echo.
Let's see if we can get that to turn off. Hold on 1 second. Is that better?
I think so.
Okay, that's better. Okay, good.
Yeah.
I heard a delay for a while. I go, oh, I can't hear you. Anyways, good morning. Good morning. Well, it's not good morning for you. It's good morning for us.
Right. Yeah. Good evening here. But
Good
yeah,
evening.
good morning.
Thank you so much, Zara. I mean, on behalf of Girls Love to Fly nonprofit, we were so excited to get this interview with you because our, mission is to inspire women in aviation all over the globe to fly, and that's exactly what you've done. So thank you so much for what you've done. I want to start by letting everybody know, if you don't know who this is Zara Rutherford. She is an amazing 19-year-old woman, flew around the world, broke 2 Guinness Book of World Records.
Yeah.
Tell us about yourself. Tell us, I know there's a lot, but just tell us about yourself.
Sure. So, well, my name is Zara Rutherford, and I am now the youngest woman to fly sail around the world and the youngest person to do it in a microlight. So, a microlight, I think, is like a light sport in the US. So, yeah, an extra small plane. And yeah, it took me 5 months. I left on August 18th. I arrived January 20th. I was delayed in Alaska for a month, and I was delayed in Russia for a month, both because of visa and weather issues.
Okay. What kind of weather issues did you have? And so how long was your delays?
Right. So I reached Nome, Alaska, which is kind of to the northwest even of Anchorage. And it was about a 4-hour flight. And then I get to Nome and my Russian visa had just expired. So it was really frustrating, but it meant that I needed a new visa. And so that took about a week. So thankfully the Russians managed to do it quite quickly. So that was really, really helpful. But by the time the Russian visa got back, it was basically winter. Winter had kicked in, it was starting to snow. And there's this kind of snow that wasn't going to leave. It was a snow that stayed there until spring, which was really frustrating. But every time I tried to cross the Pacific through the Bering Strait, it just the weather was just no good because I can only fly VFR, so I can't fly inside of clouds or at night, and it was just always pretty bad. So I had to wait for a while. I think it was 3 weeks after that that I finally found a weather window and I was able to leave and head towards Anadyr, which is on the Russian coast. And that went fine. The next day I flew across Siberia, which was fascinating but quite intimidating because at the time it was minus 31 degrees Fahrenheit on the ground. And so, sorry about that. And so it was just extremely cold. And I was quite worried the whole time. If the engine stops, I'm hours away from rescue and I'd be stuck in such cold temperatures. I don't know how long I can actually realistically survive in that.
Yeah.
And so that was really intimidating, but thankfully I was okay. And then the next place when I left, I had to divert because of poor weather into a tiny town called Ayan, which is about 800 people. Very few of them spoke basic English, and there was no Wi-Fi. So suddenly I was stuck in, essentially the middle of nowhere. What it felt like the furthest away from home that I was, and it was quite tough to deal with, and the weather was really bad. So the storms there, the snowstorms were just another level, another league. Especially in the north, they could have some really, really bad storms, and so it took me ages to try and finally leave Ayan. And once I was out of Russia, it was all good. So once I was out of Russia, it got a lot easier.
Was it worse than you expected for your planning purposes? And what was your daily planning like for your navigation? So like you plan this trip out in advance, you plan it out to a T and try to do it like perfect, or did you just kind of wing it? Like what was your plan?
It was a bit, it was more towards the winging side of things. Because the route changed throughout. So when I actually planned the route, I had included a lot more places. Like, well, not more. I'd included from the US, I'd go into Russia, into Mongolia, into China, into Southern Asia. That didn't work out because of COVID. So then I had to go through Russia and South Korea. Suddenly North Korea becomes a problem. For the actual planning, so before my flights, I would use 4Flight. It was a great app. So my phone was my primary GPS, and it was just kind of, yeah, obviously checking the weather, checking TAFs, METARs. It really depended on where I was in the world. Sometimes some forecasts are better than others. For example, the cloud base in, I don't know if you know Windy, windy.com. It's a great weather forecasting app. Yeah. So I was using that almost all the time, but the cloud bases near the equator were completely useless. Just had nothing. There's no, completely different. Similar with the Pacific and the Atlantic crossing, I had to be quite careful because Windy tends to be more optimistic. So although it would say the cloud bases were maybe 5,000 feet, in reality they'd be 2,000, 3,000 feet, which is fine, but it's something to keep in mind. And yeah, so it was fascinating to see how the weather changed as well throughout, depending on the climate. So up north, it'd be much more common to have overcast, right? And then that would stick around for like a week. Whereas as I got close to the equator, it would turn into more like cumulus clouds, right? These little puffy things.
Yeah.
That were very quite cute to look at, but then also really turbulent inside. So you don't want to fly inside of one. And for the actual planning before my trip, obviously check the fuel, make sure that I've got enough, and using 4Flights. Usually airspace wasn't an issue; it was more terrain. So just making sure that I was staying clear of any mountain ranges.
Okay. What was one of your longest legs that you flew? Like what's the longest stretch that you did? And during those flights, how did you nourish yourself? And did you get so tired, go, oh my gosh, maybe I should land now, find a spot, and not go to the destination that you had chosen?
Right. Sorry, can you repeat that first question?
So what's the
longest flight? Yeah. That's right. The longest flight was from Mumbai to Dubai. That was an 8-hour long flight. So from India to the United Arab Emirates. That was 8 hours long over water. And that's exactly why it was so long. It was over water. So there aren't exactly any alternate airfields.
You had no choices to land.
Right. And actually when I did arrive in Dubai, there was a thunderstorm there. Apparently it was the first thunderstorm they'd had in like 2 years. So I was really unlucky. And then I had to divert to another airfield about 60 or 80 miles south of Dubai.
Okay. So when you did your first solo, like when you got your private pilot license, were you scared when you did your first solo?
And of course, I think no. So I remember it very clearly. So I was just doing circus with my instructor. I didn't realize I was going to do a solo. And then suddenly he says, okay, we're going to land, full stop. Now, like, okay. And then he gets out of the plane and he's like, okay, go off. You can do a few circuits now. And I was really happy. I was really confident. And I went up at full throttle. And the moment the wheels left the ground, I remember thinking, what on earth am I doing? Why am I doing this? This is the most dangerous thing. But it ended up being great. Funnily enough, I think it was one of my the best landing I'd ever done. I've spoken to a few people. That's usually what they say, that on the first solo. Yeah. It's a pretty good landing. And I think I did 2 circuits, and then I was like, okay, now I'm gonna stop.
So were you more scared? Did you have more fear for your first solo, or did you have more fear for this big trip that you did?
I had more fear for this trip, just because there's so many things you just can't be sure about, especially before leaving, right? I mean, I'm relying on so many other factors. I'm relying on good weather. I'm relying on the engine of the aircraft. When you're doing a solo, I think the weather's good, right? When you leave, and it's unlikely to change within those 3 minutes to do a circuit. I was really quite nervous for these really long legs when the weather could still change and it could just kind of become bad whilst I was flying, and that's the main thing that I was really nervous about. If for any reason I couldn't land at my destination, there were some parts in the world where that would have resulted in a really big problem because there just were no other viable alternates around.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Well, you're an inspiration because, like I said, people are scared to fly, right? A lot of women are scared to fly. They're scared of their first solo. They're scared of just a small cross country. So I think you just have proved a big point and a big inspiration, because I think when women or any aviators are up there flying by themselves, if they can just think of what you've done, they can accomplish something themselves. Did your family, did you have any setbacks from family or friends saying, I don't know if you should do this, like, or was everybody just all supportive?
Yeah, actually, the people around me were very supportive. My mom was worried.
Yeah, of course.
But then yeah, but then I was kind of able to convince her, and I said, actually, this is fine. Like it's as I'm trying to make it as safe as I can. And she was like, yeah, okay, cool. And then she came on, she was like, okay, fully supportive. Yeah, so I was very lucky with the fact that my family was very supportive throughout. And the biggest challenge in the beginning was finding sponsorship. So this whole trip was fully funded through sponsorship, and I think I got my main sponsor like a week before I was due to leave. In the end, my departure date was moved, but yeah, so that was quite stressful because I was trying to find the money to actually do it.
Yeah. I don't think you're going to have any problem getting sponsors now.
But we'll see. Yeah, we'll see.
I don't know. And how long when did you come up with this idea to do this trip? Like, did you just wake up in the night deciding that this was one of your missions, or?
Right. Basically, I'd always dreamt of flying around the world. My family's quite adventurous. We're always looking for that next big adventure. And so for me, flying around the world was like the greatest adventure. And I really wanted to do it, but it was one of those, I don't know if you have those as well, it's just a dream you have, but you feel like deep down it's not going to happen. It's like, oh, it'd be cool if one day I did this, but you like know that it's not going to happen. And that's kind of what it was. It was like, how am I going to make this work? I don't have the resources. I don't have anything to really make this work. And then I was finishing school, and I think that's when I realized I have a year now, so between school and university, where I can just do something kind of crazy, and like I can make this happen if I really wanted to. And thankfully, my parents helped with the organization of it. And then once my sponsors came on board, then it was like, okay, well, yeah, suddenly this is possible. And suddenly it's like, okay, now I have to actually fly. I actually have to actually do it.
Yes. That's cool. Well, since you've done such an awesome adventure, what's up your sleeve next? What do you want to do next? And what do you want to do with aviation now that you've accomplished what you've accomplished?
So for me personally, I'd love to go. Well, I'm going to university in September to study engineering. I'd love to keep talking to people about my experiences of flying around the world, and as long as I can, keep encouraging girls as well as boys to just go fly, go do something crazy. And sorry, what's your second question?
What's your next step? What's your next step in aviation? What do you want to do with it now that you've accomplished such an amazing thing, flying? Right. Around the world? Do you have any like exciting things that you want to do for yourself next? Like, what do you do? Where do you fly next? And B, what else do you want to do with, aviation now that you've taken these big steps?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for me personally, I'm planning on getting my commercial license. Cool. And I want to be a ferry pilot. So that's what my dad does. He's a ferry pilot.
That would be great.
So that's basically flying small planes across the Atlantic, which is quite fun. And then in general, so again, it's just giving more talks. Obviously, I'm still going to fly the Shark around a little bit. Maybe not around the world again. But just as long as whatever I can do to kind of share my story and tell people, look, I didn't think I'd be capable of this. Imagine what you are capable of, and kind of spread that.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for meeting with us here at Girls Love to Fly. Is there anything else you want to tell women, because women or any aviators around the world, what they can do just to inspire them and just to remind them if they have this little thing in the back of their head that says they can do it in regards to aviation? Because there's a lot of fear, like I said, in regards to aviation. And I feel like, people, I had the same thing before I started flying. I had little fears of flying, and I wish, and I'm so proud of you for starting at such a young age. Like, I waited till I was in my 30s to start flying, and I'm like, man, I just glad to see people like you, 19 years old, out there inspiring people to fly, because that's my goal, is to get, you know, women flying at a younger age, because it is an amazing, isn't it, freedom, right? You're up there by yourself in an airplane like a bird,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
just flying around, literally going wherever you want. So what can you tell other, you know, women aviators out there?
Yeah. So I'd say for women interested in aviation, if it's incredible. It's really fun, first of all. But also, funnily enough, I've gotten into, you know, in places like Siberia and Siberia mostly, I've gotten into some slightly tight situations, and situations that should have put me off flying, but funnily enough, did the opposite. Because I think when you realize that once you are in this study situation, that actually it's fine, right? You just keep flying the plane, and actually you realize, oh, I did that great. Look, I'm still here. Like I did something right, and that's made me a more confident pilot. And so yeah, so I think flying it feels, and I guess it looks dangerous, but in reality, I think it's a lot safer than what some people think.
I totally agree. Actually, it's funny you said that, because when you get your private pilot license, they say it's your license to learn. And it truly is, because
Mhm.
you know, you check the boxes, you get your license, and then you go up there. And I mean, I have a lot of friends that are pilots, they got their license and they're scared to fly by themselves. So they need to look at your story. And once you, like you said, once you're up there, you're up there. So you're like, okay, well, this
Right.
is not too bad. And then
Yeah.
you learn, you know, of course, you want to keep yourself safe, and weather is like a huge thing, right? It
Mhm.
changes so quickly, and people don't
Yes.
realize the sticky situations you can get yourself into with clouds and weather,
Right.
and why it's good to do that.
My my biggest rule, and I think I never ever put myself in a situation where I couldn't get myself out of, unless I absolutely had no choice.
No
Unless,
choice.
for example, flying through again Siberia, this was a 6 hour flight where at one point there would be no point of return, if you will. I didn't have enough sunlight to get back. So that wasn't going to change ever. But situations where just whenever I could, just completely minimize the risks. And if I wasn't happy, I wasn't flying. Even if I wasn't mentally in the right headspace, I would not fly. And it's important to be really honest with yourself and say, actually, the weather is not good, because there is the get there-itis, I believe
Get
it's
the
called.
rightist. Yep.
Right. And just saying, actually, this is not good. And even maybe even writing down your minimums and making holding yourself to those, stuff like that. And just yeah, so just especially as a hobby pilot, just go out on a blue day, fly around for an hour, 2 hours, and then have some fun with it.
Work your way up to flying around the world.
Right.
Baby steps.
Yeah.
Not like what you did, but just take baby steps. They can do baby steps. Awesome.
Right.
Thank you so much for meeting with us. I know you're super busy, and we really appreciate your time meeting with us. So
No, thank you very much.
congrats to you, and we're looking forward to seeing more of your success and stories. So keep going, and power to women in aviation. You're awesome, girl.
Thank you very much. Thank
All
you.
right, you have a great rest of your day. Thank you again, Zara.